see.
Can you see me? Do I have it like in my face?
No, you're good. You're
I'm
good.
good.
Okay, so welcome back to Mujeres in Business. This is our first podcast in an actual podcast studio, but not just that, also that we're recording,
Yes.
right? So I want to preference about why it's so important to talk about the topics that we talk about, but also important to see the people that stand in the roles and see what they look like and who they represent, because
Yes.
it matters, and it definitely matters in today's society.
Yeah.
So today, on this episode, we have owner and founder of Awaken Boss Lady, Reverend Patricia Ferreira.
Yes.
She is an intuitive success catalyst, and she is very candidly my mentor and my business mentor and my spiritual mentor. I met Patty a year and a half ago in it was a networking event, right?
Yes.
On a yacht, which is very Miami. I feel like it's very Miami. And when I saw her from far away, and it felt like I knew her. I was like, I felt like I knew this woman from somewhere, and something kept telling me to look back. And I mean, for those of you that know me from like when I was a child, you know that she has a lot of similar characteristics of my grandmother. She has my exact grandmother's skin. Like, it's crazy to understand that you have her exact skin color.
Wow.
And she had salt and pepper hair since her 40s. So when I first met you, you had that
It was
transition,
starting. Yes.
right? So I want to talk a little bit about you. And again, thank you so much for being my second guest
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
on this podcast. And I just want you to have an opportunity to tell me about yourself and what you do for the collective. And let's talk a little bit about that.
Oh my God. So thank you for having me here. Number 2 is a special angel number. So I hold it near and dear to my heart, and I feel honored. To answer your question, first of all, I did not know that the story about me looking like you.
Yes.
I know you said I had her essence, but the similarities physically is new
Yes.
to me. So I received that. Thank you so much. So what do? I am, by title, I've chosen Intuitive Success Catalyst because I feel like that captures what my divine mission is during this time in my life and in this part of my trajectory. I love working with women that are connected to what they're here to do, right? They're driven, they're ambitious. That's where Boss Lady comes from. And I love that they're in this stage of awakening and doing things differently. So for me, it's about intuitively guiding them towards a higher level of success, this time with satisfaction, right? Because as driven and ambitious women, we've been at it for a long time. And we have climbed mountains and gotten to places and opened doors that haven't been opened for our lineage, and the ones who are on the other side, for some of us, there's been the discovery of it feeling flat because we didn't bring satisfaction and fulfillment and all the things that are meaningful to us into the picture. So that is what I'm up to. I'm up to getting to have everything that you want with fulfillment and purpose.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And thank
You're
you for
welcome.
doing it for the collective and the women and everybody that you do help find that, right? Because I think it's so
Yes.
important. When I was in high school, and I remember telling my sister, you know, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I've always been business driven,
Yeah.
and I said, you know, she goes, okay, well, you know, you love fashion, go into fashion, right? And I ended up going for fashion merchandising. That's my minor, but I remember saying to her, and I was such a kid, and I said to her, well, what if I get all these things and success and I'm not happy?
You said it.
And I was 17. I was
Wow.
a kid, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I feel like like intuitively I said, well, what if this happens? What if you go chasing this duck goose chase that
Yeah.
you go through life chasing something that you think you need or you want, and you finally get it and you're just not satisfied.
Yeah, like that's a powerful moment for you to remember because we have these blips in time where we are connected to our soul's awareness, and then we just kind of fall back to sleep, or we, you know, get derailed somehow. Life happens, but for you to be able to put your finger on a moment where you're questioning it, it just feeds so much the high level of awareness that I know you run, and also the level of self trust that we're starting to build now, right?
Right.
Like there was a moment where I knew, and if I could just find that moment and trust that version this time around, then I'm golden, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it took a while. I feel right. It took a. I
Yeah.
feel like for different people, it'll take different times.
Yes.
But as long as you arrive and you're awakened,
Yes.
like your business speaks, I think it's the biggest part, right? And then it's through, for me, through your guidance, it's what do I do with it now? Right?
Yes.
And so I've learned so much in this past year in your mentorship, and I mean, I want to thank you because it's helped in so many different ways.
Oh my God, that feels so good. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so I met Patty right when I had a baby. I had Cassius and baby Cash, and Cash was 3 months when I met you, and I was really deep in postpartum depression, and I had postpartum anxiety. I was in the tail end of it, thankfully. So I was out. It was my first outing that I had ever gone out.
Wow.
Yeah, and I met you, and I met Rosie, which was on my first episode. So I met so many amazing souls that I know we were meant to rekindle here and meet each other for our purpose. But I remember just gushing and telling you all the things about my son and how I felt so inadequate in this role because I didn't know what it needed to be, right? I didn't know what it meant or what I needed it to be at the time. And so I've learned so many things, and within it, I've understood, even from like a business perspective, I've talked about this to other people. I've met a lot of C-level suite women that are really disappointing in the way that they show up in the role in corporate America. And for everybody that knows, I'm a hybrid girl, right? I have my corporate job in the daytime, and then I have 3 businesses in the nighttime.
Yes.
And so for me, it really mattered when I found out that you do coaching, right? And you do executive coaching. And so the conversation that I really want to talk about today is about the importance of having and identifying both feminine and masculine energies, right?
Right.
So I feel like when you go up this corporate ladder, and I'm just giving one example, right, of a corporate ladder. I'm a leader. I'm a senior leader, and I see it in others where they're vice presidents or suite level and C-level, and they just lose their feminine energy. They're nurturing. They're obviously, because business is very male or masculine, they end up showing up very masculine.
Right.
And so I think that now I look back and I realize that's why I never wanted to get to that level. I'm okay being at a director level and below because I've never even seen someone that has reached this level of a corporate position and had the same nurturing of a mother and the same wants to want to grow their teams from like a nurturing place. And so for me, even from like a business perspective and then back to day, right, in real life.
Yes.
And so I really want to talk about the masculine and the feminine energies as we hold as beings, and we call it the yin and the yang.
Right.
And why is it so important to recognize in today's society more than ever?
Yeah. I mean, that is a huge question and such a good one, right? And I think it's about talking about it in different pieces and from different perspectives so so that it's inclusive. And like the first piece is the piece around corporate, right, and the business world in general, small business, entrepreneurial, all the different segments of the business and professional world. I believe that that is it's the front lines of these times, right? If we are in in a movement of shifting and alchemizing and creating the new world, right? And new ways of believing, new ways of structuring ourselves, new ways of relating. I believe that our professional settings are the front lines. Like these are the guys that are taking the first hit, right? Because it's where it gets very loud internally. It's where we are finding a lot of our inner battles, our triggers, right, that are coming up. So I have a lot of compassion and empathy for all the folks, right, that are managing and walking towards personal initiations in this arena. Because what I believe is that the areas of our lives are the areas that are set up to help us grow, right? It's like, let's say the play, right? The storyline. So some women will choose to grow through the area of motherhood.
Right.
That'll be the area that offers stretching and growing and learning and seeing things from a different perspective. Other women will choose professions in the business world. Other people will choose their health, right? And when I say choose, it's a subconscious choice, right? But these are other people who choose their relationships, right? Their marriages or their relationships with significant others. So these are all like the arenas in which the growth and the evolution is happening. For me, I'm very passionate about the business woman, right? And I believe that that's one of the places where it's front lines. So what's happening is we are feeling the imbalance
Right.
of it all. Really, what we're doing here now is having an opportunity to reorganize things and bring things into unity, right? Bring things into blended and balanced experiences, right? Where it's not so much a duality, right? So when we talk about feminine and masculine, right, like that's the epitome of duality.
Right.
So we're starting to realize that it's more than yin and yang is something that lives within us. It's an intelligence. It's an intelligence that holds memory and holds codes of behavior, of agility, of believing, right? It holds characteristics, right? It's got strengths and it's got things that it's here to serve and support you with, right? So what we're seeking is the ability to come into reconciliation with both within ourselves, because what a lot of women are realizing, some sooner, others later, is that when we are too heavily weighted on one side, right, it becomes toxic. Yeah, and it becomes to where we don't feel whole, because parts of us have been severed, right, alienated. I call it going from fragmented to faceted, right? So some of the experiences that we have is of women that have chosen one side and can only do it in one way, and believe that at this stage of their life, right, switching or bringing another approach in could be too high of a risk. Like this has gotten them this far, right? It's gotten them this far. And for me, like boss lady was what my team used to call me. So when I first added it to my brand, it was like a homage to them, right?
Oh.
Because I'd walk into this room of like 20 salesmen, and they'd be like, here's the boss lady, right? And some of it was for a good reason, others were,
That's okay.
another way of using the B word.
Yeah.
something that I knew I was running. I was running some high masculine, like energetics.
Right.
Yes, and I didn't know how to do it any other way, and I was not going to put at risk what I had achieved, how far I'd come, the way I was getting results in order to get into, like, experimenting, which is what it felt like.
Right.
Right? So I think that all of us are being called to balancing the two, our masculine and our feminine. I think it's about doing the inner work first, right? Because as we are within, we project, we create and manifest outside of us. So when we're having all these imbalanced conversations with men in our teens, or all these beliefs around other women being competition and all the things that are now toxic and derailed, and expired, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's ourselves being shown the light, right? Being shown the density and the shadow, right? So that's the first piece about that. I'm gonna kind of let you chime in so that we can go in a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But the feminine and the masculine comes from, it's like, it's a big topic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree. I think that what ends up happening is it shows up differently in each lifetime, right? So let's say in your present life, how did it show up, and how is it different now? How did it show up when you were younger, and then how did it show up? How did you change it, or how did? Because you gave us an example from like a professional perspective, which
Yes.
I could say the same, right? I've been in leadership for since I was 22, right? We don't want to age ourselves, but we're
It's been a couple of
27.
years.
And so, but I've, even today I can, get on a ship and it's just, it could be a different conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's culturally.
Yeah.
A lot of our people, or people on our teams, it could be a cultural thing, but, which it really is even for us as Latinos, right?
Right.
And Latinas, you're conditioned in certain ways.
Yes.
But I want to talk a little bit about that, right? So we have these technologies, right? These intellects that lie within us, and how does our upbringing and
Yeah.
the way that our cultures are affect that, right? Because they have to affect it in some type of way.
Absolutely.
Being a woman and then being a man.
Mhm.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about conditioning, right? And socialization and culturalization. There's so much to be said about that and the impact that it has in who we become. I think that's something that's known and understood by us
Right.
all, right? I think the piece that's new, the piece of information that's new, is that it is our belief that becomes our reality. Right? And that,
Absolutely.
I believe, is something that we're just starting to really understand, how we are projecting our life through our thoughts, right? So if we're, just to kind of explain it in a very practical way, right? If we are sitting here conditioned to believe a certain truth, because truth is relative, right? And then we believe and embody that truth, we become that truth, we make behaviors and decisions from that truth, right? We are going to see a world back that reflects that truth, and again and again and again, right? It's the reticular activation system, right? That
Right.
which you say you see more of, right?
Right.
And it's just like Wayne Dyer used to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? So
Right.
now what's happening is we're starting to ask some deep internal questions to ourselves. And they're curious questions, like what if questions. What if I didn't believe this? What if something else was true? What if I changed or opened up, right, my perspective, right? Where I'm not 100% believing it, but I'm curious, right? The curious behavior that builds higher consciousness and open perspectives and awareness, right? These are the things that are happening that are letting us see that there are other ways
Right.
of doing things, right? So I feel like that's a powerful shift that's just happened um, in the world since 2020, since things have started to unfold for us, since the veil has gotten thinner. Like all these things are happening together to help us wake up and ask curious questions and believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we're talking about feminine and masculine, what I think gets to be known is that it's the premise of wanting to live a fragmented life or a one-sided approach life, or wanting to tap into your entire wheelhouse, your full capacity, right? Your full bandwidth of power and intelligence.
Right.
Yes, and it's understanding that it's not about picking a side, but it's about having the agility and the resourcefulness to know when it's the masculine that gets to come in and show up,
Yeah.
the masculine intelligence, the mature, right? The healed masculine intelligence, not the toxic,
Right.
right? And immature or wounded masculine. And it's about being able to intuitively,
Mm-hmm.
yes, know which is going to be the skill, the intelligence, the characteristics, the trajectory that's going to serve you for that particular need. And having all your tools on, right? All the codes on and open. And that's when you're in your power, right? Because if I am working on a project, yes, that is about a vision that no one's ever realized or seen or experienced, right? It's the feminine that's going to enroll people in
Right.
the vision. It's the feminine that's has that persuading skill,
Right.
that ability to share a story with you and to make you feel seen and help you feel relevant, right? These are the intuitive skills. These are the emotional intelligence. This is what we call it in the
Right.
corporate
In the
world,
corporate
right?
world,
So
yeah.
that we can talk about soul and human in a
Mhm.
way that people get, right? And
Exactly.
everywhere in corporate, if you ask them what's the skill, we want to develop self-awareness, we want to develop emotional intelligence, we want to develop multidimensional leadership. Let's call it what we need to call it. Let's get to work, right?
Yeah.
And it's genuinely at the seed, it's the feminine.
Yeah.
And then once we've got everyone on board and engaged, that's where the masculine intelligence comes in with the structure, right? And the container, right? The masculine helps us build the container. These are going to be the boundaries, these are going to be the standards, this is the approach, this is the process, right? You can't do one without the other. And that's where these abilities are such a beautiful gift for anybody to embody. It
Right.
is how we can access a higher level of success. When you get to that level of inner harmony,
Yeah.
now you're a catalyst.
Right. I love that. I think that it's exactly what needed to be said. First of all, because it came. It's funny because I ask a lot of the every single one of these podcasts. I mean, um, are divinely guided, right? I talked to you about when I picked out this name like a year ago, and I didn't know what to do, right? I just said, okay, well now what? And I got the
Yeah.
idea. Now what do I do? And a large part of it was because I hadn't done my work, right? My own inner work,
The inner work.
to be quiet enough. There's so much going on. There's always like the rat race.
Yes.
And this is probably the first year where I've let go.
I love it.
And when I let go, it got so clear in the beginning of the year. It said, this is what it is.
Yeah, your
And
winter.
I will continue guiding you. And so when it came to you, I said, God, there's so many things I could talk to Patty about.
We
and
can
then
do several of these.
Yes, and and Ricky, my husband Ricky wants to be on one with you.
Oh my God,
Yes.
I love it. The masculine and the feminine.
Exactly.
There you go.
And you're both New Yorkers, so
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's so much juice there, like you say. But speaking of the men and the men in our world, and Patty, for those that don't know, Patty holds a women group,
Yes.
and I'm part of the women group, and so we can give a little bit more information. We'll put a little
Totally.
information at the end of this so that people can know where to find you and everything like
Yes.
that, and enroll. Because you could be a digital enroller also. You don't just have to be living in Miami. And we talked about it. I think when you first met Ricky, but we talked about, he said it jokingly where he said, I need a men group, right?
Yeah.
And you said you do. You actually said you're right, and you were serious. And so, because of the masculine and the feminine, and because there are a lot of women groups, there aren't as many men groups,
Yeah.
right? That talk about the conversations that women are having from a male perspective on
Yes.
Earth. And so I want to talk about the importance of having both, and elevating the two, and what could happen if we don't.
Yeah. I mean, that's a powerful question and a powerful conversation, right? Like being able to have this conversation where we can have enough empathy and inclusion to understand that it's not about separation anymore,
No.
and it's not about choosing a side, right? I get us needing to do the divine feminine work. Like I totally get it. And for a while in my trajectory, I was completely devoted to the divine feminine work because I was on one side of the spectrum, and it took me moving all the way to the other side of the spectrum to then come back and find my sacred sweet spot.
Right.
Yeah. So I totally understand if you're very much in your masculine to do that kind of trajectory, without losing sight to the fact that what we're looking for is sacred union. We're looking for sacred union. We're looking for that harmonious blend within us and then manifested outside of us, right? Through sacred marriages, through soul sponsorships of each other, right? Men, women, and all.
Right.
So, as we are awakening and asking questions and growing and seeking collaboration and seeking tribe and seeking circles where we can feel safe, right? We're healing,
Right.
and we're elevating, and there's a need for there to be that same level of support for men, right? And again, it's the conditioning, right? The conditioning is maybe not to be so open to their emotions, maybe not to be so open to what they're feeling or they're dealing with, right? Kind of do it yourself
Exactly.
type of thing. And that brings a lot of hardship to our men, right? There's been a lot of, dismissing. I know it was my story, right? I was brought up in a very tribal model, right? It was my mom, my grandmother, her three sisters. It was a very matriarchal tribe of women that ran the show. We had the men, like my dad was in the picture my entire life. My uncles were beautiful models of like the masculine in my life to a certain extent, right? And the women ran the show. The women ran the show. The women made the decisions. Like they would sit in group, make decisions, and then come out and inform and delegate and enroll, right? They'd enroll, inform, delegate, depending on what the task was and what the objective was, right? So subconsciously, that led me to act the same and believe that men were second tier. Yeah, like you get informed once we have clarity, but the origin, the birth, the ideation, the conception happens within the women, and it also made me trust women blindly sometimes because I've been hurt because of that, right? That toxic, just it was a blind spot for me, right? Women are trustworthy, men are not, right? Women are good, men are not. Like the duality. Like, this is an extreme example to just make it very practical, but when I had to think and believe something. And what I believe today is that, um, yes, everyone gets to receive the empathy and the compassion that's in alignment with their behavior, right? The stereotyping or the blind casting
Right.
to a whole group of folks, which is like what I did, yeah, is never going to be healthy for you. If you're doing that in any area of your life, like, it's time to go in and look at it. And men get to have containers where they can unpack what has been thrown on them, the baggage that they're carrying, the traumas that they have, right? And we get to see men with eyes of possibility, right? I hear so many women calling in their forever men and their kings. And I think the question is, are you in a place where you can manifest and attract a king, a true king, a man that is both in his masculine and his feminine, a man that you can see his boyish ways and hold that as sacred, right? A man that can be vulnerable with you and you not project or judge, yes? And not the archetype of the king, which is just like the protector, provider type of, pays the bills. You want all of it to be a sacred sponsorship, a soul sponsorship. So that's what I think about having more men's group. And if we had groups with men, for men, by men, and then there was that interrelation, right? That interconnectivity of men and women seeing each other and witnessing each other, then we'd get closer to unity.
Right.
And not having the duality and all the different words that we give to our men and our women.
Right.
Yeah? So I hope that helps.
Yes,
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you totally did. You totally did. And you talked about, I mean, for me, it's the same thing, I don't think it's a coincidence that I had a son.
It's not. It's not.
And that he's the first boy in our family.
Oh my God.
Because we were all women.
Yeah.
Of course, my father passed when I was a little girl.
Yes.
But even he was the only male, and he had 4 sisters.
Wow.
And so they're all women.
Yes.
So on our side, it was also all women. Not a lot, but all women. And same thing, right? And so even for us, it's been somewhat of a struggle, right?
Yeah.
Because you have a man that is, I have a very blessed to have a husband that does have both, and but shows up also as the male, but will also allow me to lead, and it's beautiful because it is like a dance.
Yes.
And sometimes, he'll lead, and sometimes I will.
That's
And
the beautiful.
that's just,
that's the harmony.
That's
right
the
there.
harmony, and
That's it.
but it's so hard for our parents to understand because they come from such a different place, or they come from relationships that weren't balanced.
Yeah.
So him and I had to find what that was and identify it, and we still are, right? Even as new parents.
Yes.
But then I think about how I'm raising Cash, and where maybe your parents will say, oh, he's not supposed to cry so much, or he's a man, or
oh my God, yes.
And I think being an awakened mom and soul, you have to, like what you've told me, you have to respect and be in sponsorship to what he has enrolled himself for.
Yeah.
But also have an awakened part where I do allow him to have emotions, and I do allow him to cry, and I allow him to, even at 1.5, almost 2 years old, have emotions and be excited and have all these things, and it's so beautiful to see things through your child's eyes, because it reminds you of when you were a child. But
Yeah.
it's, I think it's nice because we get to see in what ways they help you heal, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are teachers.
Yeah, there are teachers. That was the first thing you said to me when I met you. You were like, "Oh, he's your teacher," and I think you even told me he's an older, so you should probably an older soul.
Yeah,
me.
well, we know he's an older soul, just
Right.
tapping in and tuning in
Yes.
to him as a soul. And all of our children are our teachers, right? It's understanding, and we have this very limited way of understanding when someone is our teacher, right? Like when a person is showing you a new way of doing something, they're teaching you, right? And they're teaching you to open up,
Right.
right? And expand and evolve and elevate, right? That's to me the definition of a teacher, right?
It is.
And our children are coming in with some powerful codes, especially during these times where we're asking the questions and seeking answers that don't exist in this world as we know it currently. Right. But we're the creators, yeah? So where are we going to source the intelligence to build the new? It's from our children,
From
right?
Our children.
When a child teaches you to rest, when a child shows you to pause, I mean, you tell a beautiful story about the moment. I love hearing that story. The moments when you were putting him to sleep because he had colic.
Yeah.
That's him teaching you.
To pause.
What am I going to create? What is going to be the story, the arena that will create the lesson?
Right.
Yeah? And he taught you how to pause to a point where you began to meditate. There was enough peace of mind, and your parasympathetic system was devoted to slowing down in that moment to where now you're tuning in to meditation.
Yeah.
And then you start to get experiences with your guides.
Yeah.
He taught you how to do that.
Yeah. You're right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
But you're right. He did.
And now he's turned on a circuitry within you.
Yeah.
That you want more of.
Oh, 1,000%.
That gets you to go out and find it where it lives. Because think about it. Like, your ability to attune to, I want a place where I could feel more of this and be more like this, was birthed from that need. And that's why I like to, and I know we're going a little bit in circles because I want to teach how it's not linear, right?
Right.
You are being grown through the arena of motherhood.
Oh, 1,000%.
And what it's teaching you and what it's awakening and lighting up within you impacts all that you are. Because it's impacted choices that you've made. It's impacted how you walk through life. Like, I know, because I know you, that now meditation and silence and reflection and quiet is something you have as a devotion. You know the gems that are available to you through that. So it's very important for us to understand how we are here to break chains, right? When you talk about our parents and our ancestors and our lineage and the way we used to do things, like if there's one unanimous description of the collective right now is that we're chain breakers.
1,000.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
And those coming in to support us, to show us, like, come this way, do it this way, are our children. Yes? And us honoring them is a powerful, powerful decision, right? Honoring their path, honoring them as whole human beings and not as the stereotypical archetypical roles that we carry from the past. All of that is expired. All of it. So yes, conscious parenting.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. It's funny because in my corporate job, we're in the process of making like a conscious leadership training, and it talks about, I'm tired of people talking about like, oh well, you have all these types of leaders. That no, but we want a specific type,
Yeah.
and it's this type of leader.
Yes.
And so parenthood, I think that is the same way as intuitive parenting, conscious parenting, like, and knowing definitely that trusting myself.
That's it.
That's it. It's knowing, okay,
Yeah.
even if I'm wrong, it's fine. I'm wrong. It's okay, but I followed it,
Yeah.
and I didn't doubt it,
Right.
and that's to me what matters more.
Yeah.
But it's so important for the next generation that's coming, the generation
Oh my
of
God, yes.
the kids of the millennials, which is Generation Alpha, and I agree. I think that our children are probably statistically they say that our children are probably will be some of the most intelligent beings just because of the information and the time that
They
they're
already
born.
are.
Yeah.
They already are. We're the ones that have to catch up, right?
Exactly.
When you like, and this may stir up some folks, but for me, the most intelligent children are the ones on the spectrum.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and what they are teaching us are the skills that will be our next level of evolution, right? Like we come from a place where we want to we understand that unity is about color and gender and races, and where we're headed to is a unity of intelligence, right? Of the what I call the spiritual skills, right? The clairvoyance, the ability to see, to hear, to connect, right? The emotional intelligence. Like these are all the pieces that we get to be united and have diversity and inclusion around. So that I believe will be our next level of evolution. Really being able to see and mainstream, and I use mainstream lightly, but really be able to see the strengths, the behaviors of these children, the things that they know and can see and can sense, so much more than us, because that is where we're headed.
Absolutely.
Right? To that intuitive awakening that is already a seed within us. We can all do it.
Right.
Yeah?
Yep.
And these kids are coming in with those sensories lit up.
Absolutely.
So if you are connected to any of these beautiful souls, like really start to recognize the patterns and see what's in it for you, because those are some powerful teachers that we've been given. Yeah?
Absolutely. Well, that is all for me today. Yeah, these are short and sweet.
I love these.
I do want for people to know where they can find you.
Yeah.
So what's your URL? What's your website? Give us all the deets so everybody can follow you.
Okay. All right. Well, my website is awakenedbossladycoach, right, .com. It's awakenedbosslady.com.
Awakenedbosslady.com.
Yes. That is a beautiful collaboration that we did. I have to mention that. And you doing my website was like the biggest gift for me this past year. So awakenedbosslady.com for the website. Awakened Boss Lady Coach is on Instagram.
Perfect.
And through those, you can reach out to me and connect.
Yes. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about, or tell them a little bit about your membership, your women's group, and then your upcoming retreat. So where can they find more information? When is the retreat? Just, a little plug-in, a little shameless plug.
Gladly. So the membership is like my newest baby, because we're going into an area where where collaboration is going to be so powerful. We are bringing in the Awakened Boss Lady Success Circle, which is a place where we come together on a weekly basis, virtually, and then we meet monthly in person and virtually. So it's got the both channels of participation. And I think it's the biggest call that I have right now for women to be to come in closer and to be part of this work, right? We're about helping women break free from what no longer serves them. We're about helping a woman connect and come back home to her gifts and her power, right? And where you're doing that doesn't matter, right? If you want to build a business, let's do it. That's where we'll see what gets to be alchemized. What's the inner work? What's the mindset that's no longer serving you? If you're a mom that's dealing with, blending your mom life and the other areas, if you're like, come, let's do it, right? To me, the area, the vein, the branch from which you come from is not as important as what you need in order to be your highest version of yourself and live out your highest trajectory. So that to me is a powerful thing. In the membership, I'm always going to be working on what I call like the 4 pieces of accessing success, right? So it's always going to be a work around your mindset, your energetic, the strategy that you're bringing into that area of your life, making sure that these pieces are aligned, and then understanding that it's about navigating those pieces, right? The execution, which is hard and drawn out and doesn't leave room for the feminine to be agile and resourceful and pivoting and malleable, is what we're teaching you so that you can shift and change. So that's the membership. I invite everyone to reach out on the website. You can come in, join our next event, and then there's the retreat. The retreat is happening May 18th, right? And it's got some twists and turns that I came into last night through meditation, right? And that is that I had a lot of pushback around, the dedication of time to 3.5 days to a retreat, the dedication of money, the self-worth pieces that we deal with in terms of giving ourselves permission to show up. And I was in my ego a little bit for a little while, saying this is what it's got to be and this is what it's always been, and not doing it this way would mean going backwards. And what I received last night from Divine, after I kind of took care of my ego, and then was able to listen and remember who I work for, was that it's called to be a one day.
Oh, wow.
I know, you didn't know.
Whoa, I didn't see that coming.
You didn't see that coming. So it's first announced here. I'm going to be announcing it in the circle after this session, because it's going to officially be something that I announce with the membership. So we're going to be doing one day, May 18th. It's a Saturday. We're going to start bright and early in the morning. We have a beautiful house in the Keys. Like, we're going to be in Key Largo. And we're going to go to about 6 or 7. And we're going to be doing this quarterly. In order to be able to serve women without having the pressure that all the things around time was creating. So I'm being the student, I'm being the servant, and
I love that.
Yeah, it took a bit. I was in battle.
I love this.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. So all the women that want to be with us on May 18th, reach out.
Yes.
I already have, it's going to be $188, which is the number 8. Which is the number of the year. It's the signal. If you put it horizontally, it's the infinity symbol.
Yes.
And it's the symbol of balance, and it's the number that represents this year. And 188 adds up to 8. So I was even given the price. You can't ask for more.
No, you sure cannot. I love this. Well, thank you for sharing it here first.
Yes.
Because that's huge to me.
I'm glad you received it.
I do. So again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yes.
And thank you for talking about the things that matter and all of the work that you do for me, for my family, because it trickles, and for the collective, for everybody that you have a conversation with. And I will definitely have you on another podcast. I don't know what yet, but thank you again for coming and giving us your light and showing up in the way that you always do.
Oh my gosh.
So thank you so much.
Honored. I'm so honored, and I'm so humbled, and I'm so grateful, and thank you for trusting me with your platform and your space and your life and your family. Lots
thank
of
you so
love,
much.
sister. Lots
thank
of
you.
love.
Deep bow for you.
Bow.
And thank you all for listening and for watching, and we will be back soon.
Yes. Thank you. my God, that felt good.
Ah, yay!
You did such a good job. Stop them. Let me hug you. This is so good. Real good.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
Really good.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
it came.
good.
It's funny because I'll get like snippets of like
What it needs to be.
what it needs